Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible? Okay. Okay. So just few important points to remember as far as fluorine is concerned. Don't forget most important source of fluorine is drinking water. Okay. The recommended level of fluorine in water, the recommendation given by government is 0.5 to 0.8 milligram per liter. Okay, whenever the quantity of fluorine is less than 0.5 milligram per liter, it may result in dental caries, and that can be prevented by the technique which is known as fluoridation. This is the water treatment. We are talking about water treatment, fluoridation, that can be used for prevention of dental caries. Okay, another important aspect, if fluorine content it exceeds more than 1 milligram per liter, and if such water is consumed for long time, okay, in that case it may result in a condition called as fluorosis. Okay, where mainly bones and teeth are affected. So accordingly we are calling it as skeletal fluorosis or dental fluorosis. And for prevention of this fluorosis, what is the treatment? That is defluoridation. Okay, defluoridation. So water treatment, two water treatment in relation to the fluorine. For prevention of dental caries, it is fluoridation, whereas for prevention of fluorosis, it is defluoridation. Okay. Regarding zinc, the most important point that you should know is zinc supplementation. Okay, zinc supplementation, which is part of National Health Program. What is name of this program? It is ADDCP. ADDCP, that is Acute Diarrheal Disease Control Program. Okay, so under this program, zinc supplementation is given. Okay, why it is given? Because it reduces duration, it reduces frequency of attack, and in addition, the zinc supplementation which is given, it helps in generation of intestinal epithelium. Okay, so it helps to generate intestinal epithelial cells. So that's why zinc supplementation is important aspect to remember as far as zinc is concerned. Okay, now we'll today see few elements, trace elements. Copper. Adult human body, it contains about 100 milligram to 150 milligram of copper. Okay, as far as its distribution in nature is concerned, copper is widely distributed in nature. Okay, even poor diets provide enough copper for human needs. And as far as circulating copper is concerned, 90% of circulating copper, it is bound to ceruloplasmin. Okay, it is bound to ceruloplasmin. Now regarding functions of copper, copper it is required for formation of connective tissue, or you can say this is required for synthesis of collagen. Okay, for collagen synthesis, copper is required. Another important function of copper, it is related with the iron metabolism. Okay, it helps in iron metabolism. Copper, it is required for appropriate functioning of central nervous system. Okay, for appropriate function of CNS, it is required, and two more syntheses are related with the copper. One is synthesis of melanin, okay, which is a pigment, and other is myelin. Okay, it is required for melanin and myelin synthesis. Okay, so what we said, Copper functions appropriate functioning of central nervous system. Then it is essential for formation of connective tissue, melanin and myelin. Okay, as far as metabolism is concerned, it is related with iron metabolism. Now for sources of copper, these are animal sources as well as plant sources. From animal sources, it's organ like liver, kidney, shellfish, okay, nuts and legumes, or simply what we can say, copper, it is widely distributed. Okay, since it is widely distributed, even if poor quantity is taken, it fulfills the need of the copper. Okay, so even if poor diets, they can provide or they can fulfill the human need because there are various foodstuffs which contains copper. Regarding deficiency of copper, what we said, poor diet fulfills the need. So dietary deficiency or excess of this element is comparatively rare. Okay. Now what is hypocupremia? Okay. Low intake of copper, it can result in hypocupremia. Okay. And generally hypocupremia is seen in patients with nephrosis, Wilson's disease, one of the important condition, Wilson's disease, or even hypocupremia we can observe in persons or children with protein energy malnutrition and the infants which fed exclusively on cow's milk for longer period. Copper deficiency, it may lead to neutropenia. Okay, what is the other side? There can be excess. Okay, so whenever excess intake of copper is there, it may result in hypercupremia. Okay, so hypercupremia, it reflects excessive intake of food prepared in copper vessels. This reflects excessive intake of food prepared in copper vessels. Hypercupremia, it may be associated with severe anemia. It may be associated with hyperthyroidism, or even it may be associated with myocardial infarction, leukemia or Hodgkin's disease. Okay, regarding requirement of copper, it's only 2 milligram per day for adults. Next trace element is cobalt. Okay, cobalt, it is part of vitamin B12. Okay, that is cyanocobalamin. Cobalt, it is part of vitamin B12. What is function of cobalt? Cobalt is required for production of thyroid hormones. Okay, and in production of thyroid hormones, cobalt, it is required for the first stage. Okay, for the first stage of thyroid hormone production. And already we discussed this stage when we discussed iodine. The first stage in production of thyroid hormones is iodine trapping. Okay, so cobalt, it plays important role as far as iodine trapping by follicular cells of thyroid gland is concerned. Okay, cobalt, it may interact with iodine and it may affect utilization of iodine. Okay, this is important aspect to understand. Interaction of cobalt with iodine and it may further affect utilization of iodine. So that's why deficiency of cobalt, it may lead to goiter. Okay, deficiency of cobalt, it may lead to goiter. Next trace element is chromium. Total body content of chromium, it is less than 6 milligram. Okay, rich sources for chromium, it mainly includes meat, yeast and grains. Okay, as far as chromium and metabolism is concerned, chromium influences carbohydrate metabolism. Okay, it has influence on carbohydrate metabolism. As far as its action is concerned, chromium potentiates action of insulin. Okay, chromium potentiates action of insulin, and chromium, it is pulmonary carcinogen. Okay, this is additional point. It is pulmonary carcinogen. Okay, whenever there is inadequate status of chromium, it may be responsible for hyperglycemia, impaired glucose tolerance, and glycosuria. Okay, so chromium, as we said, it potentiates action of insulin. So whenever there is inadequate status of chromium, what you can see, there is possibility of hyperglycemia, IGT, that is impaired glucose tolerance, or even there can be glycosuria. Next element is selenium. Okay, selenium, it acts as antioxidant along with vitamin E. Okay, it acts as antioxidant. What is function of selenium? It is essential for production of a red cell enzyme, and name of this enzyme is glutathione peroxidase. So for synthesis or production of glutathione peroxidase, the enzyme which is present in red cells, selenium is required. Okay, selenium deficiency we can find in protein energy malnutrition. Okay, deficiency we can find in protein energy malnutrition. Now the administration of selenium to children with kwashiorkor. Kwashiorkor is one of the extreme form of protein energy malnutrition. Okay, administration of selenium to children with kwashiorkor, it resulted in significant weight increase. And there is one more thing related with selenium. Combined deficiency of selenium and vitamin E reduces antibody production. Okay, so regarding selenium, just protein energy malnutrition is the important aspect. What are various sources for selenium? Selenium, we can get it from seafoods, meat, cereals. Okay, several sources for these trace elements are there. Regarding daily requirement for adults, it is 70 microgram per day. It is 70 microgram per day. Whereas for infants, it is 10 microgram per day. Okay, so what we said, daily requirement for adults, it is 70 microgram, and for infants it may vary from 10 to 15 microgram. Okay, then another important thing related with the selenium is excessive intake of selenium. It is associated with, here is spelling mistake, it is associated with selenosis. Okay, this is selenosis. This is just due to autocorrection. Okay, that wrong spelling is there. Excessive intake of selenium, the condition is called as selenosis. Okay. Molybdenum, the last trace element. Deficiency of molybdenum, it is mainly associated with cancerous conditions like mouth cancer or esophageal cancer, and excess absorption of molybdenum, it may lead to bony deformities. Okay, it may lead to bony deformities. So this is about different trace elements. The trace elements that we discussed right now are less important, so just I finished it fast. Manganese is one more thing regarding functions of manganese. It is required for protein synthesis, for synthesis of cholesterol. It is required for metabolism of fatty acids, and deficiency of manganese. It is generally not seen in human beings. Okay, so it is not significant trace element. I think K Park has not mentioned about manganese. Okay, so this is just additional point. Now we are going to start about the most important aspect related with the macronutrients. So right now we completed micronutrients. Okay, so we had finished with different vitamins, and we finished with major minerals, we finished with trace elements. Okay, now the other part that is related with the nutrient. Okay, so what is nutrient? Just to recall, nutrients are organic or inorganic complexes which are present in the food, and these nutrients we classified into two. Okay, micro and macro. Micro we finished. Now we are going to start with macronutrients. Okay, so another synonymous terminology for macronutrients you are supposed to know, that is proximate principles. Okay, we call these macronutrients as proximate principles. Why it is so? Because they form the main bulk of our food. Okay, and as far as examples of macronutrients is concerned, at this moment I think all of you are knowing these are proteins, these are fats, and these are carbohydrates. Okay, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Now, first we will talk about proteins and then we will proceed further. Now, as far as proteins are concerned, basically the word protein, it means first importance. Okay, meaning of this is first importance. First importance. Okay, so by derivation, the word protein, it means that which is of first importance. Okay, but what are proteins? As far as chemistry aspect is concerned, proteins are complex organic nitrogenous compounds. Okay, so we are saying as far as their structure is concerned, they are complex, they are organic in nature, and they contain nitrogen. Okay, so just 2-3 keywords regarding proteins. These are organic nitrogenous compounds, and proteins, they are mainly composed of carbon, they are composed of hydrogen, oxygen, and the most important thing is nitrogen. Okay, now in addition to carbon, hydrogen, and the most important thing is nitrogen. Okay, so that's why we said these are nitrogenous compounds. They may contain some other elements. Okay, so it can be a sulfur or it can be phosphorus. Okay, so it is found only in certain proteins. Okay, so in addition, they may found or you may found presence of sulfur or presence of phosphorus and even presence of iron. Okay, so there are different elements that we can found in addition, but the most important thing to understand here is these are nitrogenous compounds. They contains nitrogen. Okay, what amount of nitrogen is present? So these proteins, they contains about 16% of nitrogen. Okay, so 16% of nitrogen is present, and presence of nitrogen, this is the differentiating feature. Okay, presence of nitrogen, based on this we can differentiate proteins from carbohydrates and fats. Okay, so nitrogen, it is present in proteins, it is absent in carbohydrates, it is absent in fats. Okay, now what is protein content of adult human? Okay, so protein, as far as adult person is concerned, it constitutes about 20% of body weight. Okay, as far as body weight is concerned, 20% of body weight is constituted by proteins. Okay, so what we said regarding proteins, these are organic nitrogenous compounds. Okay, these are nitrogen containing compounds. Nitrogen, 16% of nitrogen is present in protein. And as far as adults are concerned, about 20% body weight is constituted by proteins. Yeah. Another important thing as far as protein composition is concerned, what is the basic components of proteins? Okay, so proteins, they are made up of amino acids. Okay, what we can say, proteins, they are made up of amino acids. Now what happens, different amino acids, they are linked together. Okay, different amino acids are linked together, and this linkage further forms peptides and proteins. Okay, so as amino acids are linked together in formation of proteins, these are also called as building blocks. Okay, so building blocks of proteins are nothing but amino acids. Okay, so most important thing related with protein composition, don't forget, okay, we are calling amino acids as building blocks. Okay, and nitrogen is present in these amino acids. Okay, so amino acids are linked together, forming peptides, forming polypeptides, and finally the entire chain is nothing but proteins. Okay, and the smaller unit is amino acid. Okay, so what we said, proteins are made up of smaller units. Okay, proteins are made up of smaller units, and what is name of these smaller units? These smaller units, they are called as amino acids. Okay, so amino acids, as far as their number is concerned, human body, it requires about different 24 types of amino acids. Okay, different 24 types of amino acids are required by human body. Regarding this requirement and their synthesis, okay, some amino acids, they can be synthesized and they can fulfill the requirement. Okay, whereas some amino acids, they are not synthesized up to the extent which can fulfill human requirement or which can fulfill human need. Okay, we are talking based on synthesis. Okay, and the quantity which can fulfill human need or which can fulfill human requirement. Okay, so regarding this, you are supposed to know amino acids are further divided into two types. These are essential amino acids. These are essential amino acids. Okay, so essential amino acids are those amino acids which cannot be synthesized in amounts corresponding to human need. Okay, cannot be synthesized in amounts corresponding to human need are essential amino acids. So what is applied or what is practical aspect of this? Essential amino acids must be supplied through diet. Okay, so their supply from food or from diet is very essential. Okay, essential amino acids. What can be the other type? These are non-essential amino acids. Okay, these are non-essential amino acids. As far as non-essential amino acids is concerned, our body can synthesize these amino acids. Okay, and the requirement is fulfilled. Okay, so endogenous synthesis of these amino acid is sufficient. Okay, so there is no need that we should get these amino acids from diet or from food. Okay, but you should not forget these are essential amino acids. Okay, so dietary intake of these essential amino acids is very important. The 2-mark question, which is Generally asked, for this you are supposed to know at least few important names of essential amino acids. Okay, so here I enlisted both essential amino acids as well as non-essential amino acids. The examples of essential amino acids, it includes leucine, isoleucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, valine, and histidine. Okay, so these are the essential amino acids. Okay, and out of this, if you can recall, if you can recollect, leucine we have discussed in relation to pellagra. Okay, and even tryptophan we discussed. Tryptophan we discussed in relation to synthesis of niacin. Okay, so if you can remember, it's tryptophan which is precursor. Okay, so two names already you know, just few others that you are supposed to know. So I repeat once again, it's leucine, isoleucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, valine, and histidine. Okay, as far as non-essential amino acids are concerned, it includes arginine, asparginic acid, glutamic acid, serine, proline, hydroxyproline, and glycine. Okay, still other examples are there, but what K-Park has given, only those examples I mentioned here. Okay, out of this, don't forget the names of essential amino acid. Okay, essential amino acid. Yeah, regarding proteins, now we are going to discuss about proteins, various practical aspects that are related with the proteins. Okay, but before I start with the proteins, just permit me to end this meeting and please rejoin. Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible? Okay. Okay. So right now we discussed essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Okay, based on the synthesis you are supposed to know, and dietary requirement of essential amino acids is very important. Okay, now regarding proteins, there are certain terminologies. To understand meaning of these terminologies is essential. Okay, so the proteins, two terms here you can see: biologically complete protein and first class proteins. Okay, these are almost synonymous terminologies, but biologically complete protein is the term used by K Park, so at least pay attention to this term. Okay, biologically complete proteins. So biologically complete protein. So whenever a protein, when it is called as biologically complete, what is the criteria for this? Okay, so the criteria is very simple. Whenever a protein, it contains essential amino acids. Okay, it contains essential amino acids, and now I am talking about all essential amino acids that right now we enlisted. Okay, so whenever a protein, it contains all essential amino acids, and to be specifically, it if it corresponds to human need, okay, we call it as biologically complete proteins, or the same are called as first class proteins. Okay, so whenever we consume the food article, and that food article, if it contains all essential amino acids, we are going to call such protein as biologically complete proteins or first class protein. What is example of such proteins? Okay, which type of food can give us all essential amino acids? All essential amino acids, these are mainly animal proteins. Okay, so whatever animal proteins are biologically complete proteins, or they are first class protein. Okay, whenever we are saying this statement, what it means: animal proteins will provide us all essential amino acid. Okay, whatever different 10 essential amino acids are there, we will get these amino acids from animal proteins. So in animal proteins, again, it can be meat proteins. Okay, meat proteins, or this can be fish proteins, this can be fish proteins, or these can be egg proteins, or these can be milk proteins. Okay, so in animal, whatever proteins that are present in meat, we are calling this as meat proteins, fish proteins, egg proteins. Okay, and milk proteins. So all these foods, they provide us essential amino acids, so we are calling these as biologically complete proteins. Okay, in addition, the bioavailability, okay, bioavailability and digestibility, it is high as far as animal proteins is concerned. Okay, bioavailability already we have talked in relation with micronutrients. Okay, so after consumption, whatever amount is available for our body to utilize, okay, that is concerned with the bioavailability. Okay, so they are having higher bioavailability, as well as they are having higher digestibility. Okay, we are talking about proteins, we are talking about animal proteins, and two animal proteins, what we called biologically complete proteins. Okay, what can be other aspect? When we said biologically complete protein, the other side will definitely be biologically incomplete proteins or second class proteins. Okay, now to which proteins we are going to call as biologically incomplete or second class. If you know one side, other side is very clear. Okay, now what we can say here, a protein, it is said to be biologically incomplete if it lacks, okay, if it lacks in amino acids, if it lacks in essential amino acids. Okay, so it may be lacking either in one essential amino acid or it may be lacking in more than one essential amino acids. Okay, so here it is important to understand whenever we use the terminology biologically incomplete proteins or second class proteins, they are lacking in one और मोर इसेंशियल अमीनो एसिड्स. तो कोई तो भी एक या उससे ज्यादा इसेंशियल अमीनो एसिड्स उसमें नहीं है. ओके, फॉर biologically complete protein example we said animal proteins. What can be example here? Okay, so it is just opposite to that. It includes vegetable proteins. Okay, vegetable proteins. So whenever we take plant foods, okay, whenever we consume proteins from plant sources, okay, these are called as vegetable proteins, and these vegetable proteins, they are lacking in essential amino acids. Okay, so these can be further cereal proteins or these can be pulse proteins. Okay, so cereal proteins or pulse proteins. Okay, so is it clear? Very simple aspect to understand what we are doing here. We are just paying attention to the essential amino acids, whether all essential amino acids are present or any one or more is lacking. If all are present, we categorize these proteins as biologically complete or first class proteins. If any one or more is lacking, we will categorize these proteins as biologically incomplete proteins or second class proteins. Biologically complete proteins are animal proteins like meat protein, fish protein, egg protein, milk protein, whereas biologically incomplete proteins, it includes vegetable proteins like cereal proteins or pulse proteins. Okay. One more term is there, biological value of proteins. Okay, as far as biological value of proteins is concerned, here what we are doing, we just do one comparison. Okay, and this comparison, it is related with the proteins which are present in our body. Okay, so these are body proteins. Okay, and the proteins which are present in the food, so these are food proteins. Okay, what we are supposed to do, if we do the comparison as far as composition of body proteins is concerned or food proteins is concerned. Okay, so here we are paying attention to composition. Okay, composition of body proteins and composition of food proteins. So here we are talking about amino acid composition. Okay, now there are two possibilities, that composition of amino acids in body proteins and the composition of amino acids in food proteins. Okay, it may resemble, it may be similar, or it may be different. Okay, just two possibilities, it may be similar or it may be different. Now those food proteins whose amino acid composition resembles closely, okay, close resemblance hai, so we are going to call these proteins as proteins of high biological value. We are calling these proteins as proteins of high biological value. High biological value कौन से proteins का है? हमने क्या किया? We have just seen the amino acid composition of food proteins and body proteins. Okay, अगर close resembles है तो उनका biological value high है. Okay, here again examples of proteins having high biological value are animal proteins. Okay, so animal proteins, they are having high biological value. Okay, well, now what can be the other side? If the composition of amino acids, of body proteins and food proteins, it differs widely. Okay, it differs widely. We are going to call these proteins as proteins having low biological value. Okay, proteins having low biological value. Now, what example can be here? The proteins of low biological value, these are mainly vegetable protein again. Okay, so where you can find wide variation. Okay, biological value, again same thing, high biological value animal proteins, low biological value vegetable proteins. Okay, there is one more thing as far as the ranking is concerned. Okay, so when we do this comparison, we can do ranking. Okay, ranking of proteins. हमें क्या करना है, प्रोटीन को रैंक देना है बेस्ड ऑन व्हाट, दिस इज बेस्ड ऑन biological value. Okay, based on biological value of proteins. Okay, we can give ranking. How this ranking is given? Now if you want to give ranking to egg protein and milk protein, okay, हमारे पास egg protein है, milk protein है. Okay, इसमें हमें based on biological value ranking करना है. Okay, so egg proteins, they are superior to milk proteins. As far as biological value is concerned, egg proteins are superior to milk proteins. Okay, another comparison that we can do, another ranking that we can do, and this ranking you can do with mother's milk or breast milk. Okay, mother's milk, and this can be done with cow's milk. Okay, okay, mother's milk and cow's milk. Now इसमें अगर ranking करना है तो based on biological value, definitely mother's milk is superior to cow's milk. Okay, so overall protein composition of cow's milk is high as compared to mother's milk, but since biological value of mother's milk is high, definitely it fulfills the nutritional requirement of the baby. Okay, so this is ranking based on biological value. Now is it clear with the concept of biological value? Just we said composition of amino acid between food and between body proteins, whether it is similar or whether it is different. Okay, similar we can find mainly in animal foods. Okay, and again in animal foods, egg proteins are they are superior to the milk proteins, and as far as mother's milk is concerned and cow's milk is concerned, mother's milk is superior to cow's milk. This is most important heading that all of you must know, because this is frequently repeated question. Okay, and a very simple concept to understand. This is supplementary action of proteins. Okay, we are talking about supplementary action of proteins. Okay, now one thing you know, when we talk about vegetable proteins, okay, vegetable proteins, they are lacking in essential amino acid. Okay, essential amino acids, either one or more, they are lacking in vegetable proteins. Okay, now let's talk about cereal proteins. Okay, cereal proteins, they are deficiencies. We are talking about cereal proteins. Okay, we are talking about cereal proteins, and these cereal proteins, now I think cereals includes what all of you know. Okay, so cereal proteins, they are lacking in two essential amino acids. One is lysine. Okay, one is lysine and other one is threonine. Okay, this is threonine. What we said, cereal proteins, they are lacking in lysine and they are lacking in threonine. Now let's talk about pulse protein. Okay, as far as pulse proteins are concerned, they are lacking in methionine. They are lacking in methionine. Okay, so right now, initially just you know that vegetable proteins are lacking in one or more essential amino acids. Now we are having examples in front of us. We are saying cereal proteins, they are deficient in lysine, they are deficient in threonine. Pulse proteins, they are deficient in methionine. Okay, now one more name we will give to these essential amino acids which are lacking in vegetable proteins or vegetable foods. Okay, so these amino acids, they are called as, these amino acids are called as limiting amino acids. Okay, so don't forget this important term. Okay, so those essential amino acids which are lacking in vegetable proteins, either cereal proteins or pulse proteins, we are calling these as limiting amino acids. Okay, so is this base very clear? What is meaning of limiting amino acids? Okay, these amino acids are not present in vegetable foods. Okay, we are calling these as limiting amino acids. Now, what is supplementary action? As far as supplementary action is concerned, what generally we do as far as vegetarian food is concerned. Okay, so when two or more than two food articles are combined together. Okay, say for example, we combined dal with rice. Okay, so rice is example from cereals, dal is from pulse. Okay, so you know limiting amino acids. Okay, you know examples of limiting amino acids. Now, whenever these food articles are combined together or they are consumed together, their proteins supplement each other. Okay, so these amino acids will get supplemented. जो राइस में नहीं है वो दाल से मिलने वाला है, जो दाल में नहीं है वो राइस से मिलने वाला है. You got it? So this is called as supplementary action of food, and supplementary action of food we get it from mixed diet. Okay, so when different food articles are combined together. Okay, so whenever we are mixing cereals with pulses with vegetables. Okay, so this supplementary action occurs where limiting amino acids are supplemented. Okay, is it clear? Any doubt regarding supplementary action? Because many times the students who do not refer to this concept, they just mention proteins are required for growth and they are required for repair. We are not talking about the particular function of proteins here. We are just talking about the food that we consumed and what is the significance of mixed diet as far as supplementary actions of proteins is concerned. Okay, so don't forget the keywords: limiting amino acids. Okay, the amino acids which are lacking either in cereal proteins or pulse proteins. Okay, whenever we combine our food, whenever we combine cereals with proteins, these proteins are supplemented or these limiting amino acids are supplemented. Okay, so this is known as supplementary action of proteins. Now let's see what are various functions of proteins. Okay, another question which is generally asked in your exam: functions of proteins. Okay, so as far as functions of proteins is concerned, one function already you know. Proteins, they are mainly required for growth. Okay, they are mainly required for growth. So as far as growth is concerned, these proteins, they help the child to grow, and for this growth all essential amino acids are required for synthesis of new tissues. So whenever new tissues are formed in our body, definitely our body needs all essential amino acids. Okay, even these proteins, they are further required for maintenance of those tissues which are already formed in our body. Okay, to that simply you can call it as maintenance of already formed tissues, or the same function you can say as growth and repair. Okay, so don't forget role of all essential amino acids as far as synthesis of new tissues is concerned. Okay, Another important function of proteins, they are required to maintain osmotic pressure. Most important function, they are required to maintain osmotic pressure. Okay, so this is important practical aspect concerned with pathophysiology of edema, which may occur due to protein deficiency. Okay, so it helps in maintenance of osmotic pressure. Another function of proteins is proteins, basically they acts as buffers. Okay, they acts as buffers, and since they acts as buffer, they help to maintain acid base equilibrium of the body. So maintenance of acid base equilibrium is another important function. Okay, now in physiology you have studied different enzymes. Okay, different enzymes, and don't forget the most important aspect related with enzymes. Whatever different enzymes are present in our body, these all enzymes are protein in nature. They all are protein in nature. Okay, so what we can say as far as functions is concerned, since all enzymes are protein in nature, proteins are required for synthesis of enzymes, and enzymes further plays n number of roles in different reactions. Okay, so another important function is synthesis of enzymes. So what we said, growth and repair, we said maintenance of osmotic pressure, we said maintenance of acid base balance by its action as buffer, and we said acid base balance. Okay, another important function where it is required for formation of some other things. Okay, so they are required for formation of plasma proteins. Okay, different plasma proteins you are knowing. Okay, for synthesis of plasma proteins it is required. Okay, as far as coagulation is concerned, proteins are required for synthesis of coagulation factors. Okay, for synthesis of coagulation factors. Another important synthesis as far as protein is concerned, this is hemoglobin. Okay, this is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, it has two parts. One is heme, okay, which is concerned with the iron, and second is the globin. Okay, so as far as globin is concerned, this is protein part. Okay, so for synthesis of hemoglobin. And another important synthesis, this is required for synthesis of hormones, and here we are talking specifically of peptide hormones. Okay, here we are talking specifically of peptide hormones. So proteins, we said they are required for synthesis or formation of plasma proteins. They are required for formation of coagulation factors. They are required for formation of hemoglobin, and they are required for synthesis of peptide hormones. Now, what different hormones are peptide hormones in our body? Just to understand the significant role of proteins in hormone synthesis, I will just tell you what different peptide hormones are there. Okay, so different hormones from anterior pituitary. Okay, from anterior pituitary, which includes TSH, ACTH, FSH, LH, prolactin. Okay, these are the various hormones coming from anterior pituitary. Okay, these are peptide hormones. From posterior pituitary, it is antidiuretic hormone. It is oxytocin, which is again peptide hormone. Calcitonin from thyroid. Okay, then it is insulin, glucagon from pancreas. Parathyroid hormone or parathormone from parathyroid gland, renin from kidney, it is gastrin from stomach, cholecystokinin from small intestine, and of course hypothalamus. Okay, so whatever releasing factors and inhibiting factors are there coming from hypothalamus, all these are peptide hormones. Okay, for synthesis of peptide hormones, these proteins are required. Okay, so regarding formation or regarding synthesis function, we said plasma proteins, we said coagulation factors, we said hemoglobin, and we said different peptide hormones. The next function of proteins, it is again related with the synthesis. It is required with synthesis of antibodies. This is required for synthesis of antibodies. Okay, and there is one important observation related with protein energy malnutrition. Now, the children having severe protein energy malnutrition, the observation in these children is that there is diminished activity of cell mediated immunity, and there is decreased phagocytosis which is observed in these children. Okay, function is related with antibody formation, but the observation further which is related is decreased CMI, decreased response of cell mediated immunity, and reduced phagocytosis which is observed in children with protein energy malnutrition. Okay, one more function of protein is there. Regarding this already we have talked energy. Okay, but this should be last energy. 1 gram of protein, it gives 4 kilocalories of energy. Okay, we are talking about 1 gram energy. And there is one more function related specifically with the people residing in cold environment. Okay, so this is called as specific dynamic action. This is called as specific dynamic action. Okay, as far as specific dynamic action is concerned, this is the function which is important in cold environment. Okay, this is a generation of heat. This is concerned with generation of excess heat. Okay, and one more function, last function that already you know, this is the tryptophan. Tryptophan, which is precursor for synthesis of niacin. Okay, so these are the various functions related with the proteins. Okay, I just request CR to start with the attendance. Yes. Yes. Apeksha's name is here, I think. I can see her name here. Akanksha Naikar है ना? Apeksha is who? Okay. Okay, 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 okay.